Aedra and Daedra. Oh, yes, I can go on about one of my pet peeves here. Let's do that. The designation of gods, demons, Aedra and Daedra are universally confusing to the layman. They are often used interchangeably. Aedra and Daedra are not relative terms. They are elvish and exact. Azura is a Daedra, both in Skyrim and Morrowind. Aedra is usually translated as ancestor, which is as close to Cyrodiilic as Cyrodiilic can come to this elven concept. So it's an elvish word. It's not an absolute. It's not an absolute thing at all. It's something that means ancestor or not ancestor, and that's only relevant if you're an elf. They're not going to actually start claiming that people are ancestors of men or not because they're mer. Of course, they're not going to do anything about men, or not going to think that men are linked to them at all. Daedra means roughly not our ancestors. This distinction was crucial to the Dunmer, whose fundamental split in ideology is represented in their mythical genealogy, which is a contradiction of what was said earlier in the text. Fundamental split in ideology is represented in their mythical genealogy, but the Dunmer worship the Daedra. So, do the Dunmer think that the Daedra are in fact their ancestors? That's... Yes, Krandrak. Aedra and Daedra are not relative terms, just terms about their relatives. Very well put. Aedra are associated with stasis, Daedra represent change. Yeah, more or less. I disagree with that hugely, or at least the fallout from that. You tend to get people talking about Anuic entities representing stasis and Padmaic entities representing change. That doesn't match what Anu and Padme do. Anu in the Anuad just wants things to go back the way they were. He wants to change things to go back. Whereas Padme is just being fundamentally selfish about the whole thing and self-centered. That does kind of match what the Daedra are doing, because they are self-centered in that their planes are made out of themselves, but it's not really just stasis and change in the same way. Aedra created the mortal world and are bound to the earth bones. Or are they the earth bones? I've seen people talk about Ifri in particular being the first earth bone. So I'm not sure but this implies that the earth bones, which are later just talked about by Baladas Demnavani as being the laws of nature, as being something distinct from the Aedra. It's not totally clear. Daedra who cannot create have the power to change. Change themselves or change the world? I'm not sure there. As part of the divine contract of creation, the Aedra can be killed. Witness Lorcan and the Moons. This is a reference to Lorcan having his heart torn out by either Akatosh or Trinimac, depending on who you read, and then having his heart, his divine spark, thrown down into Mundus. But this is one of only two texts that equate Lorcan to the moons. So I'm a little skeptical about it, particularly as the Khajiit don't associate Lorkhaj with the moons. I know it's a possibility, I know it's the most widely accepted theory, I just don't 100% buy it myself. The Protean Daedra, for whom the rules do not apply, can only be banished. That's meaning that the divine contract of creation and the rules that are in that don't apply to the Daedra, so they don't die. Which the affairs of wizards. Overview of gods and worship. I feel I need to talk about this one. An overview of gods of worship in Tamriel by Brother Hetchfield. Brother Hetchfield is an associate scribe at the Imperial University Office of Introductory Studies. So this is a simple text just written by a postgrad, basically. This is something that is possibly someone's doctoral thesis. Basically, that's the feeling I get from that sort of an introduction. Gods are commonly judged upon the evidence of their interest in worldly matters. A central belief in the active participation of deities in mundane matters can be challenged by the reference to the apparent apathy and indifference on the part of gods during times of plague or famine. But if you think about the text that we just read, it talks about the Aedra being bound to the earth bones. So are the earth bones superior to the Aedra? Are they on a level with? It's not totally clear. But if the earth bones are superior to the Aedra, that in the act of creating the world, the Aedra subjugated themselves to the rules of the world, that would make sense. From intervention in legendary quests to manifestations in common daily life, no pattern for the gods of Tamriel activities is readily perceived. Someone needs to proofread this guy's thesis. The concerns of gods in many ways may seem unrelated or at best unconcerned with the daily trials of the mortal realm. The exceptions do exist, however. So yeah, basically gods don't... It might not necessarily be that the gods can't do anything, it's just that they don't care. Which is fair enough, and a little Lovecraftian in a way. Many historical records and legends point to the direct intervention of one or more gods at times of great need. Many heroic tales recount blessings of the divinity bestowed upon heroic figures who worked or quested for the good of a deity or the deity's temple. Some of the more powerful... And the scrolling thing isn't working. Oh, yes, it is. Artifacts are in the known world were originally bestowed upon their owners through such reward. And that's mostly the Daedra, though. That's not being pointed out fairly. It has also been reported that priests of high ranking in their temples may on occasion call upon their deity for blessings or help in time of need. Or if you're just a worshipper, which is something I'm possibly going to be doing with this character. The exact nature of such contact and the blessings bestowed is given to much speculation, as the temple holds such associations secret and holy. This is also something that you'll see when people talk about, is Talos a god? Well, yes, of course he is. His shrines have mechanical effects, duh. But that's really, really quite basic. I just don't agree with that argument at all, because you look at the shrines in this game, and they are shrines to St. Olms and the various saints, and St. Realms and similar. St. Realms, I think, was a martyr who died fighting Argonians, and basically gave them a pretext for the war, the Arnesian War or the Arborgenesian War, something like that. And there's another saint who basically the most holy thing he did was walk around, do the entirety of the 7 graces on his knees. And if that sort of thing can give you a blessing or generate some sort of blessing through being sacred and holy as through the activity in the temples, I'm not that sure it's the gods as such. And then you've got the wrinkle that the shrines in this game are powered by the tribunal for the most part. I need to have a poke around in an Imperial Cult shrine and see if there's actually any workable shrines there. I'll have a look as and when we get to one. Yeah. In many circumstances, however, these same gods will do nothing in the face of suffering and death, seeming to feel no need to interfere. It is thus possible to conclude that we, as mortals, may not be capable of understanding more than a small fraction of the reasoning and logic such beings use. Yeah. That's basically, they're doing things according to their agenda, not yours. Which says something about them, I think, which contradicts the next few passages. And yes, Krandrak, and St. Nerevar is maybe alive right now, and you can still get a Spirit of Nerevar blessing. Yeah, there's enough going on with the shrines that I think, no, not really. One defining characteristic of all gods and goddesses is their interest in worship and deeds. Deeds in the form of holy quests are just one of the many things that bring the attention of a deity. Deeds in everyday life, by conforming to the statutes and obligations of individual temples, are commonly supposed to please a deity. Supposed to. Performance of ceremony in a temple may also bring a deity's attention. Ceremonies vary according to the individual deity. The results are not always apparent, but sacrifice and offerings are usually required to have any hope of gaining a deity's attention. Yeah, it's a quid pro quo arrangement. They're not going to do anything for you if you don't do anything for them. Particularly if, as we've noticed earlier in this, their interests don't really align. While direct intervention in a daily temple life has been recorded, the exact nature of the presence of a god in daily mundane life is a subject of controversy. A traditional saying of the Wood Elves is that one man's miracle is another man's accident, and we're back to happenstance and serendipity and so on again. While some gods are believed to take an active part in daily life, others are well known for their lack of interest in temporal affairs. It has been theorized that gods do in fact gain strength from such things as worship through praise, sacrifice, and deed. It may even be theorized that the number of worshippers a given deity has may reflect on his overall position amongst the other gods. This is my own conjecture, garnered from the apparent ability of larger temples to attain blessings and assistance from their gods with greater ease than smaller religious institutions. However, if it's in the interest of a god to get power through worship, then surely helping your worshippers is a good way to guarantee that people will worship you. If they know you're going to do them favors because they do you favors, then you'd get an awful lot more followers if it was that direct. Crandrax took him 6 places to get to his thesis. Yes, definitely a PhD student. But I honestly don't see it. The Daedra and people like Boethia particularly are really unconcerned with the worship of mortals and so on. It's not something at all that they're actually interested in. But because if you look at the invocation of Azura, which talks about what all the various Daedra wanted out of her, I think her name was Sagrilla. They all want something different, and not all of it is related to worship at all. So for the Daedra, at least, it's not that. And the Aedra, we don't see enough of to really know at all. So pass. There are reports of the existence of spirits in our world that have the same capacity to use the actions and deeds of mortals to strengthen themselves as do the gods. The Tribunal in particular. The Tribunal do gain power from that sort of thing, or at least they claim they do. The understanding of the exact nature of such creatures would allow us to understand with more clarity the connection between a deity and the deity's worshippers. Yep, absolutely. So go and have a chat with Vivek. I mean, it's not like he's totally enigmatic or anything. The implications of the existence of such spirits leads to the speculation that these spirits may even be capable of raising themselves to the level of a god or goddess. That's exactly what we see in the Sijic order, for example. They talk about the old way that the gods and demons are simply ancestors who managed to pull off some spectacular feats is the way that they think about it. Motsuo of the Imperial Seminary has suggested that these spirits may be the remains of gods and goddesses who through time lost all or most of their following, reverting to their earliest, most basic form. Practitioners of the old ways say that there are no gods, just greater and lesser spirits. Okay, hey, yeah, that all works. Yeah, I'd totally forgotten that was in there. Perhaps it's possible for all 3 theories to be true. It's possible. I don't really buy it.